Hey guys, it's Wade here. I just wanted to do one final update slash overview on the mill CNC effort to get this thing completely upgraded to CNC capability. Some of these things you've probably seen in other videos. I'm just going to do a quick recap on some and then go into probably the hack diagram to show you what I've done inside the box. But I've made a lot of parts for the lathe CNC conversion, and that's going fairly well. So I've kind of run this whole system through shakedown crews. I've discovered some things that I need to tweak. Other things are working fairly well. This tool touch off pad, this thing's working fine. This 5-inch vise, which at first I thought was probably a little bit too big, it actually works out fairly nice. Might end up still getting a 4-inch vise. I just put the covers on for the Z-way covers and then the Y-way covers in the back. With this accordion style cover, I actually lost an inch off of my Y travel. I don't think that's going to be an issue, but if it does, I can always figure out a modification for this. I went ahead and oiled everything up. So I've got a fair number of tools now in the tool library. I've got them all mounted up. That's been working out well. Up here, the air ratchet working as my power drawbar. That's been working fine. I, of course, got the pulley installed on the spindle side for the spindle encoder. I've actually got I went through a smaller bracket and then a larger bracket, a thicker one for the spindle encoder. I have everything hooked up. I was getting errors initially. I went with the larger bracket so it wasn't bouncing around as much, and then I ran the cable very circuitously so it wasn't with the other cables. I'm not getting an error anymore, but I am having an RPM issue. I'll cover that in a different video. So let's go inside the box. Right off the bat, you can see I've cleaned up and shortened these cables that run to the motors, the stepper motors. I've also grounded all of them, so they're terminated into a ground that goes to the case. I've added the encoder connection, and that's also grounded. And then the VFD output, which is a 0 to 10 volt output, that I switched over from a tight twisted cable wire, also a shielded cable, and it connects up here to the KBSI 240D. That also is grounded. That's this lead wire right here. So the shielded cable is grounded, and then it also, I put a Zener diode in there right at the connection point. There's a Zener diode that goes across the actual two wires, and then that helps mitigate the noise on that wire. So everything's going good for the most part. As far as my RPMs, there's still a little bit of a difference, you know, anywhere from 50 to sometimes 150. Everything in green is new. So going into input 4, we have the tool touch off. Now, one thing about the tool touch off is it's got two circuits. One is to show when a tool is actually touching off, what the actual offset is for that tool. But if it goes down past 5 millimeters, it actually triggers an e-stop. That way, if for some reason with the tool in the spindle and then Z-axis decides to just crash down through it, if it gets too far, it'll actually just shut everything down. So that is actually a third e-stop. I do have, which I didn't really show you, see if I can get a picture of it. Yeah, I have these two lights here, these ring lights, obviously right up here. Kind of makes it look like a UFO or a spaceship. I control those. They're connected to an output. One's a 12 volt, one's a 24 volt, so I had to actually put them on different output relays. But I didn't really get into this before, but on the older board, this relay 1 and relay 2, that takes up these first two relay positions. So really, how this works on this 8 relay breakout board, relay 8 is connected to relay 1, so these are in pairs. So when relay 8 fires, so whenever I fire off the mist, it actually triggers both relay 8 and relay 1. It's the same for relay 7 and relay 2. So knowing that, I went ahead and wired a 48 or 24 volt for one light and then the 12 volt for the other light, knowing that once I had one that fired off, it would fire off the other. That's how the old board works. The newer board does not work that way because the newer board, that I'm using for the lathe does not have these two onboard relays, so everything is just 1 through 8 on the relay breakout board. The other, and I'll show you this in just a second, the other output that I added is output 6 on that relay, and it's for the vacuum, which I don't have it configured yet as far as it, you know, I got to actually physically make the brackets and the host to get that vacuum so that it's helping to suck up some of those chips. I spent about an hour and a half just cleaning up chips, and quite amazing, you know, what a mess it makes. Again, I'll show you that in a second. Over here, what I discussed earlier, the Zener diode across the VFD output 0 to 10 volts, which then goes to the KBSI. Again, that's working well. That's grounded. The encoder, which is connected, I have an asterisk by that, as I also do with the one-shot oiler. I will be making those parts for the one-shot oiler on the lathe as soon as I convert that to CNC. So that's one component that I need to address and finish once I get the lathe online. So the encoder is connected. That is also grounded as far as the shielding wire. Again, I was having a quadratic error when I first fired it up, but I rerouted the cable, kept it away from all the other cables, and everything seems to be good except for the RPM. It might be a bad encoder. I'll figure that out. As I've already covered, just want to say that you know, Swissy's probe app is working well. I showed that in my last video, and then the Fusion 360 post processor. There may be one issue with that, and that's the fact that I'm getting a good Z height whenever I cut a part, but for some reason, whenever I face a part, I seem to be having some issues, and I don't know if it's the post processor or not, but I'll continue to look at that. And then the virtual control panel, I've done some mods on that, and I'll show you that right now. This is how the normal control panel looks. So you have this 4th axis over here. I've removed those buttons. I've moved some of the buttons around a little bit for my liking. You can see over here that your jog speeds, the only difference between whether they're activated or not on the original is just this little red highlighted LED button, if you will, in the corner. I didn't really like that. It wasn't really giving me a good, you know, looking right over at the panel, I couldn't see, you know, it wasn't really super clear, my old eyes. So I made it so that the background is obviously black when it's triggered, and then there's a green LED. Another thing is this speed right here, the jog between the fast and the slow. You've got the tortoise and the hare, and then the only difference is if you had it on slow jog speed, then there was a little red light by the tortoise, and that was it. And I changed that, as you can see. So whichever one is, you got it on slow, then the tortoise is lit up green. If you've got it on fast, then the hair is lit up green. Probably the one other thing, I've made the light so that, again, the light here, the light would stay on here, and then you just had this little red LED telling you whether the light was on or off. So here, if this light is on, that means that the light is on the machine, on the mill. If I turn that off, then those lights are off. So that's how that works. And then I'm going to show you that outlet right there. It's not just for the shop vac, which I've just got down here. I've got it turned on, but it's kind of an accessory too. So if I turn this auto off and then I hit this vacuum button, I can control the vacuum, or again, any type of external 120 volt accessory through the machine right here. And then I've confirmed, and I think you've seen it on another video, that because I've got it in the Fusion 360 post processor, cutting apart, as soon as the tool spins up to speed and it gets down close to the part, it's automatically kicking the mist on, so I don't really mess with that at all. I don't manually have to turn that mist on. But okay, so I've done some configurations again on the virtual control panel, just making it nicer. One last thing I'll show you quickly. I didn't even really understand what this button meant, but over here there's this MPG button, and it again had one of those little slashes in the corner for the red LED on or off. If I turn on the MPG, this stays off until I go to jog, and I go from off to X, and then you can see the MPG lights up. There's certain things, like it won't allow me with this it won't allow me to switch speeds because the MPG has control. So now if I'm over at the mill and I'm lining something up, or I'm getting everything set up to do the probing cycle or whatever, as I'm working close in over here, now I can just look over in this corner right here and see this big bright green MPG to see if this is online or not. Just trying to make it a little bit more user friendly. Of course, that's, for my setup. That's pretty much it for all the upgrades that I've done. I don't think I'm going to do any more. I have one more output on the relay board. I have a couple more on the input. I'm going to keep dialing in the mill as I go along. I've been making parts for the lathe. I've got all the parts pretty much made. I made this bracket right here, which is kind of a C bracket. Made that for the ball screw nut for the lathe, and then on the opposite side of that is a CNC. I'm sorry, not CNC. It's a 3D printed part that will hold on a flexible black tube that goes back and forth that completely covers this up as far as the ball screw. Keep it all nice and clean. And then this is where the X-axis motor will mount, right in here. And then there will be a pulley, and then a pulley on the front of that, and a pulley up here, and then a belt in between. And then this is where this connects on the front of the skirt, whatever it is. I can't remember it right off the bat on the lathe, but this connects up there. The cross slide will be up here, and this connects into this slot right here and takes this back and forth as far as the Z-axis. And then on the other end, down on this end, this will connect up right in that area. That'll hold the other end of the Z-axis ball screw. The motor will connect on these two posts right there for that side. Obviously on both, I've got some Zerk fittings so that I can lubricate it. So everything's ready to go. I've got to clean these parts up a little bit, deburr them. But I will go into these parts more when I talk about the lathe CNC conversion. So the mill is working fine. There's a few things I've just got to dial in. But overall, very happy with it. I think she's ready to continue to rock and roll and make parts. So thanks for watching. Cheers.